Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a very exciting one. If you have been around on my channel for a long time, you'll know that The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne is one of my favorite historical romances and one of my favorite romances of all time. And if you didn't know, Goodreads does an option where you can see what other books that people liked if they liked that book. So I decided to use that feature to look at what people also liked if they liked The Highwayman. I picked the ones that I thought were interesting, the ones that were readily available to me. So let's get into the vlog portion, see how that goes, and see if I also agree with readers who enjoy The Highwayman. I'm on chapter 15 of Never Seduce a Scot. I have 4 hours and 30 minutes left, but I thought that I would give you guys an update on what's happening so far. I had heard rumblings of this. I know that people really love this historical romance. I was excited going into this one. Eveline and Graham, and Eveline is part of a rival clan, Scottish clan, to Graham. Graham runs his family's clan. Eveline's father runs his. And the king has decided that in order to stop the wars and the battles and the aggression going on between Eveline and Graham's clans, that Eveline should marry Graham. The problem with that is that Eveline sustained an injury several years ago. She's now deaf, but she's pretending like she was mentally impaired by this accident. And so she has kind of a reputation of being mentally not all there because she thought that that would save her from marriage. So the hero, Graham, comes to her lands for the wedding. At the point that I'm at now, she's kind of just getting used to being in his lands with his family. She's only ever known her lands, her family. And as far as she has been told, Graham's clan are like vicious, they're bloodthirsty, and they have a rivalry because, well, not because, but part of that rivalry is that her family killed his parents. So the rivalry runs deep. Graham at least looks at her as a very, innocent woman who played no part in it. He's not going to allow her family to just go on and off his lands given the very tentative treaty between the two. I'm excited to see how the relationship progresses. Not a ton has been happening thus far. They've just had the initial attraction to each other, and they had the wedding ceremony and all of that, but there hasn't been too much interaction between the two. Like I said, she's kind of just falling in with his clans members, his sister, who is also very coddled like Eveline has been, so I imagine they're gonna kind of have a friendship. And then I'm also into The Devil is a Marquess. I still have 8.5 hours left of that one, so I'm even less far into that one. And of the two so far, I'm definitely more interested in The Devil is a Marquess. I'm fascinated by the hero. I think he takes the troubled hero to a whole other level. He's very much on a course for death. He very much doesn't care about his life, has no regard for his life, and he's just gallivanting around London and sleeping around. He just has no regard for his own life, his own reputation, or anything like that. So he has a rocky relationship with his family. I think his father has passed on and left him the estate, and he's not very thrilled about that. And I think that plays a part into why he is so flippant. I will say the audiobook is a little bit tough. I tried the audiobook of one of Elisa Braden's really popular books. The writing style plus the accents make it a little bit tough. So it's a book that I'm gonna have to listen to on regular speed or maybe 1.2. So it's going to take me a little bit longer to get through, but I just have such a good feeling that I have a feeling I'm going to really enjoy it. I am not sure if we even talked about it, and I'm really hoping that we did because I finished Never Seduce a Scot earlier today. I checked out the audiobook. It is available through Audible Plus as of the time that I'm filming this. I finished it. I landed on a 4-star for it. Admittedly, when I first started the audiobook, I wasn't that into it, but the more we got into the story, I adored it. She goes to his lands, she's part of his clan, and they don't like her. They view her as the enemy. The clan doesn't really accept her, but the hero is very much of the mind of like, I'm not going to put the sins of the father on the daughter. She is deaf and she can read lips very well. So all of these people are basically talking about her and disparaging her and talking about how dumb she is, and she can very well understand what they're saying. She's very intelligent. She moves into the clan's lands and she moves into the hero's bedroom despite him setting her up in a like wife suite or whatever. She just like promptly moves into his room, unpacks her stuff, and like sleeps in his bed and all of that kind of stuff. She is determined to have a good marriage with him. She wants to be married, she wants to have kids, she wants to have all of that, and so she just like settles herself right in. And at first he's a little bit hesitant because he believes that she doesn't have the agency to consent to a relationship with him, to a marriage with him, and so he's consigned himself to this marriage for the rest of his life with this woman that he's not going to be able to have a romantic marriage with. But he pretty quickly discovers that she is not mentally incapacitated, that she is actually just deaf, and they have a very sweet romance. She starts talking, she gets comfortable with him, and she slowly has to learn the ropes of this clan. The clan slowly has to accept her as well, and there's some like skirmishes with her family and stuff, but overall I really liked the story. There is not much angst and tension in the romance itself. There's a lot of like external tension going on, but the romance is incredibly sweet. We do get both points of view, and I adored reading from the hero's point of view, reading his thoughts on her. He's just enraptured by her. He thinks that she's so brilliant and ravishing and just gorgeous, and he's fully obsessed with her, and he's very sweet to her, very protective. And it's one of those, and I find this with historicals, so basically just historicals, it like makes your heart ache. It makes you just like ache on the inside with the love and the tenderness and the intimacy that you can really only find in historical romance, is why I love it so much. And this one was no different. I adored it, and I'm very happy that I read it. I understand the hype. It wasn't the perfect romance for me, but I think if you're looking for like low stakes romance with a very sweet hero, this is the one for you. I loved it a lot. And I'm also about 6 hours into The Devil is a Marquess. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe that I updated you guys. Like I said in that update, the hero very much does not care whether he lives or dies. He's an alcoholic, and he's sort of just like letting himself completely ruin himself. He's just drinking himself into a stupor, and he needs money. His family is going the way of a lot of old nobility. They don't have any money left. Their farming is not doing well. Their estate is completely decrepit, and he doesn't have a good relationship with his mom. His father has passed away, leaving him the title and everything, but he kind of just wants it all to die. And so he's been drinking and sleeping around, and he's created a little bit of a reputation for himself, but he needs money. He makes a deal with the heroine's father. The heroine has been out in society for 5 years, and she has like no romantic prospects. She is a bit of a wallflower. She's a bit kooky and not like marriage material. So her father finally it's like, this is enough. I'm not going to support you anymore. You either are going to get married to him for a year, or I'm going to cut you off, and I'm also going to cut off your aunt and uncle who raised you and who have children who are depending on my income. So she agrees to get married to him, and when they get to his ancestral estate, it's, like I said, completely run down. It's not bringing in a ton of rental income, and she's very business minded, and she wants to get the farm back up and working, getting that rental income coming in, and making the estate profitable again, because even though she has a pretty good big dowry that they're kind of subsisting off of, she wants this to be a partnership that is mutually beneficial for both of them, so that at the end of the year she has all of the knowledge of running a business, because her ultimate goals are to go to America and run a business herself after the year is up, and she can say that she's married and has all of the benefits of being a married woman without actually having to be married. One of the stipulations of the marriage for him to get his settlement at the end of the year from her father is that he cannot drink. So we had several scenes so far of him struggling with not drinking anymore, and Elisa Braden's writing is very detailed, very beautiful, very sophisticated, and so those scenes were pretty hard to read. The hero is very alcohol dependent. He's now suffering from like hallucinations and memories and withdrawals and things. So emotionally, this is a pretty heavy one, but I'm liking it. The audiobook experience is great. The narrator is fantastic, and it's a good romance so far. I'm very interested to see how it evolves. I'm expecting it to be very much like a Kerrigan Byrne, which is one of my favorite historical romance authors of all time. So if I like this one, I'm excited to read more from this author. It's interesting so far. There's definitely like the deep emotional ties that I look for in a romance in particular. I like when we're dealing with people's issues, when we're dealing with trauma and we're working through that together and going through the trials and tribulations of a relationship, and like meeting each other where they're at and learning how to grow together and all of that kind of stuff. So that is that. I will update you when I am done with it, give you my final thoughts, and then we'll move on to the last 3 for the video. So I finished The Devil is a Marquess, and let's get a round of applause. Oh my god, it was so fucking good. It was so good. I think this is like one of the few 5 stars that I've given out this year. I am in love with this book. It's so good. I had high expectations at the 50% mark, and they were just blown out of the water. I loved the way the relationship was handled. I loved the heartache and the tenderness and the handling of really tough traumatic issues, and just like it's so good. And honestly, like, I fear that the hero might be perfect, you know? We are dealing with some tough stuff, but wow. Yeah, wow. It was so good. There's a thing that happens before the like 3rd act breakup. They're married, so obviously they didn't break up, but 3rd act conflict happens. But prior to that, there's also a conflict that like sends the hero into a little bit of a spiral, and the scene, that whole section just like made my heart hurt, and it was beautiful. The whole thing was beautiful. Their relationship was built on so much trust and care for each other, even when they felt like the other person wasn't showing up in the way that they should. They cared so much for each other. They were just there for each other, and they were honest the whole way through, and like I loved it. I loved it, and I can understand why this is on the list of books also recommended with a Kerrigan Byrne. Very similar energy, so I would say if you like Kerrigan Byrne, you should give this a shot, because wow. And I also found a ton of other Elisa Bradens on Audible for free with like the Audible Plus category that I'm so excited to read. I think next up we're going to read Lord of Beast of Biswick. Is that what it's called? I have the audiobook and the ebook, so I'm probably gonna bounce between the two, but regardless of how the rest of the books for this video turn out, if they're even half as good as this one, or even if they're not good at all, I'm like perfectly satisfied with this. So Okay, so we have quite a many books to talk about, and by that I just mean two, because I am not having a good string of reads for this video, and I'm very sad about it. But I finished The Beast of Bissek several weeks ago at this point, and I didn't love it. I'm not usually a big fan of these like marriage of convenience stories where I feel like the couple is already like into each other and there really isn't a ton relationship wise that they're figuring out. Like, this couple definitely is figuring out quirks of each other and like how to move forward with their marriage and stuff. And their banter was fun, but I just didn't feel like the romance was that romantic. I didn't have that journey with the characters that I wanted, and I felt the same exact way with her base-born bridegroom. This is also a marriage of convenience situation. The heroine has lived in isolation her whole life. She has like red hair and freckles. This is like medieval times, so she was viewed as like an invalid, and she's like been locked in a tower her whole life by her aunt and her uncle who have guardianship of her, and her uncle arranges a marriage between her and this other guy, and her uncle really plans to like have this other guy be like a puppet leader. Guy that she's supposed to marry doesn't show up. His half-brother shows up, and his half-brother takes over for him. There's several things that I didn't like about this one. My main complaint is that I really didn't feel like this romance was earned, which is the point of the story. Like, I want to read about these two people falling in love, figuring out their issues and like how they're going to work together and what is life going to look like. That's what I read romance for. This couple didn't talk at all. They just fucked. That's it. And this is a very minor complaint, but to me it's not minor. I don't like when the hero calls the heroine plain. As the like hero, be like, oh, everybody else thinks she's plain, but I think she's gorgeous. And there are romances where like he'll say, oh, she's plain, and then change his mind over time. I don't like that. I want my hero to be utterly obsessed with the heroine. I want him to think that she's a goddess, that she's the most beautiful thing that he's ever seen. I don't like this whole like, oh, she's just plain, and then finding out that she's beautiful all along, like as you learn her personality. I'm just not a fan of that, and that was the situation here. He constantly talked about how like she had no breasts and her face was really plain and she was beautiful in the dark and like stuff like that. I don't like. I don't think that's sexy. I don't think that's romantic. And so coupled with the fact that he like wasn't into her really, he just wanted to fuck, like those two things together, and plus his possessiveness and his weird anger, and like I just wasn't a fan of this one. So between those two, I would say Beast of Bissek is I'm definitely more of a fan of that one. I would say it's more typical, just like Beauty and the Beast sort of romance. It doesn't have the nuance and layers that I typically would look for in a historical romance. Whereas the Baseborn Bridegroom, like, I gave them both 3 stars, but honestly, Baseborn Bridegroom is more of like a 2-star book because there's just not really anything about it that I like. They started fucking almost immediately, literally night 1, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, and she was just like flitting around doing stuff. And then he would occasionally get angry and then hate fuck her or angry fuck her, and then, yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of either of these, and that's really sad. And I'm also not a big fan of the one that I'm currently listening to, and I, for a moment, was like, maybe I'm just not liking the historical romance genre, like, on audio. I like audiobooks. I'm a big audiobook listener. I don't tend to have issues unless it's like a really, really, really high fantasy. I tend not to have issues listening to things on audio. I connect to the characters, I connect to the world, like I don't tend to have an issue with that, but for some reason, I think I just am not liking these 3 novels, and I don't think it's the audiobook's fault, but that's the thing they all have in common, is I've listened to the audiobook of all of them. but I'm currently listening to What I Did for a Duke. I'm 22% of the way in, and this is essentially about a duke and a woman who he has like an obsession with, but it's really just a revenge plot because he was set to marry this woman. She had an affair with Genevieve, the heroine's brother, and so as like revenge, retaliation, the hero, Alex, I think is his name, has decided to like get with her and marry her or whatever as revenge. And I will say the banter between the characters is good, but I find myself just like getting lost a little bit in the story, and I might try to pick up the ebook and see how that goes, because maybe it is the audiobook, I don't know, but 22% in, I'm just not like in love with it. That's that. I'm sad because the beginning of this was so strong. I had so many good picks, but Lord of Scoundrels could save it. So we still do have one more novel to read after this one, so we'll see. And I'm hoping that switching to the ebook will salvage this one, and then it'll be like a 4-star, and then Lord of Scoundrels will be like a 5-star. We'll see. I'll probably talk to you guys when I'm done with What I Did for a Duke. I love this cover. I love historical romance covers, first of all. But I love this cover. We'll see if the insides work for me or not. So I'll be back. All right, so in a surprising turn of events, I finished What I Did for a Duke, and this was 5 stars. It made me cry. I think switching to the ebook was the best decision because the dialogue is very, very snappy, and the change in scenes is very quick, and I think switching to an ebook was just the best choice because as soon as I switched, I was just so into the story that I didn't want to stop reading. So I loved this. It made me cry. I loved the relationship. I loved the hero. My one minor gripe about the story, and if this hadn't made me cry, if I hadn't connected to the hero so much, then I probably would have given this 4-star, is that I wish we had gotten a little bit more time of them actually like together, not necessarily in a relationship like after the declarations of love and all of that, but even prior to, a lot of their relationship interactions up after a certain point were like sex. And I wish that we had gotten just a little bit more exploration of each other in other ways. I found this story to be very, very intimate, and they fit so well together. The inclusion of the hero's points of view towards the end did an incredible job of rounding out the story, and the banter between the two of them, the time and energy put into the characters was immense, and I could just feel their relationship. I could just feel their feelings for each other, and I could feel their connection. I don't know, it worked for me in every regard. The turning point for me was I was really loving the banter. Like I said, I was really loving like their early interactions, but once they started getting emotional with each other, once they started really talking about their lives and what they'd been through, the impact of that on the story was just so big. And I don't know, I just could feel their connection very well. Like I could feel it in my chest, I could feel it in my body, and to me that means that it's a good story. And if I can feel something in my body, in my chest, then I know that I'm really connecting with it, and I loved it so much. I was fascinated by both of the characters. I could read like 200 more pages of them together and individually and just moving through life. Definitely a fantastic story. That being said, I could understand people who don't connect to this story and think that their relationship was a little bit unearned. I feel like I got enough tender and intimate moments between the two of them to be happy, and the fact that the ending made me cry with a particular decision just like really set the book over the edge for me. So it was just this like full circle moment with the characters of, you could really see their growth from the beginning to the end, and it was just stunning. Honestly, very, very well done. Very slow progress, but I could see it, and I loved it a ton. So I'm very shocked. I'm very shocked. I'm very happy. I don't necessarily know that I will read anything else from this author, just because I don't know if like her writing really works 100% for me, despite this being a 5-star. I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely am very happy that I gave this like a proper shot. And yeah, I'm excited to go on to Lord of Scoundrels, so that's what I'm gonna read next, and it's the last book in the video that I'll be reading, so hopefully it's another 5-star, and then I will have gotten 3 5-stars out of this, 1 4-star, and then a couple 3 stars. So I don't want to speak too soon, but I am 70 pages into Lord of Scoundrels. I'm already giggling and kicking my feet. You know when you just have a duke or like a viscount or like a marquess or whatever, you just have a hero who is convinced that he's never gonna fall in love, and he's like so cold and nobody understands him, and he's just the eternal bachelor, and you're in your head, you're like, you stupid little idiot. You have no idea what's in store for you. That's how I feel about this. I'm really, really liking it. It's basically about Jessica and Sebastian. And in the prologue, we get a little bit of backstory on Sebastian. He is the son of a duke, and he's his father's second wife son, and they did not have a good marriage. She eventually runs off, and his father ships him off to a boarding school and wants nothing to do with him, basically tells him that his mother is a whore and the devil, and that he's also like the devil's spawn. He gets to school and he gets made fun of for his heritage and his looks and stuff, and so he kind of takes on this like devil may care attitude. He was previously like, you know, really sensitive boy, and he had to kind of adopt this harsh personality. And so in the beginning of this, he's basically taken Jessica's brother for all of his money, and he's keeping him in Paris because her brother is like so enamored with this guy. And so she goes to Paris to like save her brother, basically. And they have a couple of run-ins, and she's very feisty and talks back. She's very intelligent and quick-witted, and he's like very drawn to her almost immediately. I think it was page like 12 is when they meet, and he immediately is like, oh, I'm fucked. He doesn't want to admit it, but he surely is. So, all right, so halfway thoughts of Lord of Scoundrels. I'm hoping to finish this today, so I wanted to give you guys an update. There are parts of this that I'm loving. You can see all of my little dog ears, which is how I annotate mass market paperback. There are parts of this that I'm loving. There are moments between the hero and the heroine that I'm adoring, moments in the hero's head where he's just obsessing about the heroine, or things from his past come up for him, which I love. And then there's other things that I'm not loving. Mainly expressing the opinion that women are the inferior sex, and saying things like, let the men talk. This was written in the 90s. I understand keeping your stories historically accurate because this is set in the 1800s. However, I don't like that. I prefer reading more progressive heroes who maybe live in a time when women were viewed as inferior, but maybe they didn't feel that way. And I understand with his past that he's very scared of love and all of that, but that's not what this feels like. There are moments where he has intimate moments with the heroine, and it's very overwhelming for him because he's never really had intimacy with another person. His mother left when he was very young. His father treated him horribly, and he's like ugly, so women didn't want to be with him. He sort of learned to get by with intimacy through sex workers, and his first experience with a sex worker was when he was like 14, and she basically called him repulsive until he gave her enough money to seem like she was enjoying it. So his experience with like women and intimacy and love and all of that is not great, and so I get that aspect of his personality being very scared and very overwhelmed by being with someone that is so into him and so attracted to him and just wants him desperately. I understand where he's coming from with that, but the actual views on women and like women in general, I just cannot deal with. So like I said, there's things that I'm loving, there's things that I'm not loving. At this point, they are married and living in his London estate. The first portion of this was set in Paris, and now they're back in London, and they're married, and we'll see how it goes. They've already had some moments together. They haven't fully had sex, but they've had a lot of like sex adjacent scenes, so we'll see. I don't think this is gonna be a 5-star. I'm not loving it like I thought that I would, but I'm also liking it more than like a typical 3-star historical. So it's probably gonna land in like a 4-star area. I don't necessarily know that I'm gonna recommend this to people because, like I said, I don't fully love everything about the opinions and conversations and things that are being said, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna get through it. I'll give you my final thoughts and we'll see where I land in this last half. But I have plenty of earmarks, plenty of cute stuff that I love is happening, and big moments together, and these moments of vulnerability, these moments of like healing or healing close to healing, beginnings of healing is happening, which is wonderful. But also the heroine shot the hero because she thought he was trying to ruin her in front of the ton, and so in revenge she shot him, which is good. We love. But yeah, like I said, there's things about this to love, there's things about this not to love. So alright, so I finished Lord of Scoundrels, and unfortunately this was not a 5-star, this was not a 4-star, it was a 3-star. As I said, there were several things about the story that I loved. I loved the tortured hero, feisty heroine situation. I loved fighting past demons. I love getting over traumas, working through traumas together, accepting love, all of that. What I didn't love was the conversations around women, particularly the hero's point of view. And I don't like stories where the hero has one negative point of view about women and then by the end he's like cured or has changed his mind. I don't want to go into a story where I'm forced to root for a hero that doesn't view women as equals. And I think maybe right now I am just particularly sensitive to that because of everything that's going on, because it seems like a lot of people, especially people that I'm like friends with and generally agree with, don't have that opinion, and a lot of people like find it funny. I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it romantic. I didn't like it. I don't mind a hero. I don't mind a society that is very in times, like set in its times, as long as the hero does not think that way. And there were several comments made along the way that I didn't like, that didn't lead me to believe that he's like, you know, a very progressive man for his time. And then lastly, I feel like the issues and the baggage that he came into the relationship with were consistent issues through the entire novel, and I didn't feel like there was a point where I could see a growth happening. The same issues that he had with the heroine in the beginning were the third act breakup, were the third act issue. And there were moments where he had like these, like, she's making me feel different, and I'm, you know, I love her so much, I want to take care of her, but still he fell back on these very harmful stereotypes and thoughts about the heroine up until the very end, and that just doesn't scream growth to me. You can have backsliding, but there was never a point where he changed his mind. There was never a point where he stopped thinking those things. So I don't know. I feel like I got a completely different reading experience than everybody else, because everyone I know, you look at Goodreads reviews, all of that, everybody loves this novel, and I feel like I just read something different than everybody else. And I'm sad about it, because this is the one that I desperately wanted to love out of this video. But that is not to say that I didn't get some good novels, that I didn't get some good romances out of this one. I had several 5 stars. I loved a decent portion of the books that I read for this video, so I'm overall very happy. I have several new authors to look out for and to read their backlist, so I am happy. But I would love to talk down below with you guys about the books that I have read. If you read and loved them, or you hated them, let's talk down below. I want to hear your opinions. Don't forget to subscribe if you are looking for more videos like this. I make such varied types of content here on my channel. It's really just about anything you could imagine. So subscribe, check out more videos if they interest you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.